Lou Gerwitz once said, Leonard Peltier does the hardest time of all. If you're a murderer, and you are actually a murderer, and you get put into a prison for 2 consecutive life terms, imagine something happens at some point, you just say, well, this is it. This is where I'm going to be, and you come to some point of acceptance. But over the years, 78 members of 78 church leaders from around the world signed a letter for Leonard. Leonard's been through several presidents.
What?
He went to prison in 1976. Some of you, as young students, maybe weren't even born then. Another time, 55 members of Congress signed an amicus brief, a friend of the court, urging the president to free him. He's won Human Rights Awards, the Frederick Douglass Award, the government of Spain gave him the National Human Rights Award. He's seen his friends die. William Kunstler, his lead attorney, has passed on. Lou Gerwitz, his dear friend and lead attorney, another lead attorney has passed on. Grandma Jumping Bull has passed on. Hazel Littlehawk, his adopted mother, has passed on. It's been a quarter of a century now. It's a very, very tragic story. He and Nelson Mandela rode back and forth for many years. Nelson Mandela happens to be in the country right now, and because we're organizing so strongly for this weekend in New York, where we expect really thousands of people, and I know unions are calling in and they want to participate.
Oh, yay.
But Nelson Mandela's in the country, and we've actually reached him and gotten information to him and asked him if he would contact Clinton. Clinton's going to Ireland next week. And there are 2 Irish women Nobel laureates, Mary Maguire and Betty Williams. One is a Catholic, one is a Protestant, both from Belfast area. And they have both agreed that they will present Leonard's case to Clinton when he comes to Northern Ireland. So Clinton needs to commit what Leonard calls an act of justice. Finally, he says, someone will commit an act of justice in my case. He's 56 years of age. He is in failing health. He's an absolutely wonderful artist. He's a wonderful writer. My friend Harvey brought his words to life, and it was a 3-year process, and it was a very difficult thing to accomplish. And it's a wonderful thing that he did. Now, the book is tremendously well received. It reminds me of a little passage in the book where Leonard goes into the sweat lodge at Leavenworth, which, believe it or not, inside the fortress of Leavenworth, they have a chain link fence around the sweat lodge. Whatever that says, I don't know. When Leonard comes out of the sweat lodge one time, he looks up at the tower at the guys with the automatic weapons, and he says, I wonder if they understand. And we were outside the walls. While we were inside that lodge, we were outside the walls. And that's what Leonard's artwork means to him. And there have been times, he's actually lost 90% of the eyesight in one eye. He's had a stroke. There have been times when they've taken his painting privileges away. I'm going to show you a couple of these paintings. These are lithographs, actually. These are for sale unframed. But this is Grandma Jumping Bull. It was at her house where the shootout happened. If you look closely at her beadwork, she has American flags on her beadwork. She had 2 sons killed in World War II. But it seems as if it's okay to demonize people who offered their children to fight for this country. She's passed into the spirit world, Grandma Jumping Bull, as is her husband, Harry. She was never able to move back into her home. Her house was completely destroyed in the firefight. This one is called Big Mountain Lady. And this was painted to bring attention to the Big Mountain Navajo people. There are 10,000 Navajos, as we speak, who are slated to be relocated out of their homeland. They speak very little English, they don't have electricity, and this painting did bring a lot of attention. They've been very supportive of Leonard, and but I actually sold the original of this painting for $1,500 about 10 years ago, and the guy who bought it told me he was off for $15,000. Obviously, the man who painted this painting is not a cold-blooded killer. This one they say is Leonard's most famous and most popular lithograph. This is called Protector of the Woods, and it's become sort of a champion, of a symbol of the environmental movement. Leonard, you mentioned Julia Butterfly, I think, or Earth First anyway. And Leonard has been very supportive and reached out to many, many organizations around the country and around the world. People in Northern Ireland are very touched by the fact that he, with all his troubles and all his problems, could reach out to someone else who's being oppressed.